Well, now we are very chuffed to be talking to the very multi-talented comedian, actor, and, not to mention, civil celebrant Jai Cameron. He has performed at two stand-up specials at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, including It's Just Me in 2019 and Domestic in 2021, as well as taking on numerous acting and producing roles. Welcome to the show, Jai.
Thank you so much, Kendra, for having me.
It is our pleasure. Now, you've performed two shows at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. It's Just Me in 2019 and Domestic in 2021. When did you start getting interested in comedy and want to pursue it?
Yeah, it's a good question. This is my dog, by the way. He might randomly appear from time to time in the interview. This is Brooklyn. But I started my comedy career in 2017 because I wanted to write something. I wanted to perform something. And I originally thought it might be a play. And then someone said to me, why don't you do stand-up comedy? So I said, yeah, that sounds good. But I thought I was always naturally kind of funny in high school. But I thought writing an hour's worth of stand-up comedy is a lot. And what would I even base it on? But at the time, I was working in a fast food restaurant. So I wrote my own show called Would You Like Fries With That? I only did 3 shows at the Butterfly Club. It was kind of a unorthodox way of getting into the comedy circuit because most stand-up comedians kind of will do a 5-minute set in a club and then, they'll do another set and basically do it that way. Whereas I did the complete opposite. I formed an hour show that I presented in front of a live audience. And let me tell you, the first show was, it was all right. But for me, it just felt like it was the worst experience of my life. But clearly, I enjoyed it so much so that 2 years after that, I did the Melbourne International Comedy Festival in 2019 and then returned in 2021. So here we are.
Yeah, so your most recent show is an hour long, but each story within it is carefully constructed to tell little jokes along the way but pay off the bigger story. How long does it take to prepare material for a show?
Well, it depends kind of on how you kind of construct the stories, I guess. Sometimes I guess all my shows have kind of had a bit of that main plot almost. And then I guess from that, you kind of get side stories as well. For the latest show, it was called Domestic. So my wife was working on a COVID ward last year in the midst of the pandemic at the Royal Melbourne Hospital. I was working in the arts and obviously was working from home. And I thought that was a really interesting story, I think, to tell, particularly because not many people were having a partner who's working on the front line whilst they were kind of working at home. And that kind of just started, I guess, bubbling ideas in my brain. And then from there, I almost write kind of segments or kind of blocks of ideas. So something randomly funny might happen and I might write that down as a story. And then I'll kind of go back to it a few weeks later and I'll kind of punch it up a little bit to make it a bit more funnier. And then basically from there, I kind of have all these like subplots, which is the most strangest way of doing comedy. And then I have to basically find a thread for the whole show and put it together that way.
That's fantastic. And it's interesting you touch on that. Your wife's working in a hospital and you're working in the arts, 2 jobs that are arguably the hardest to do during COVID. So that helped your story a lot?
It did. Michaela, I guess, was a main player, so to speak. She definitely didn't want to appear in the show, but she certainly allowed me to write as much material as I wanted, including about our love life, which was funny for other people, maybe not funny for her. But yeah, I think it's really interesting to be able to go on stage. And I think that's, that relatability, I guess, of someone on stage with the audience, I always find a bit funnier. I mean, you can do characters and you can do random things about life, but when it is personal stories that are very uniquely yours, I think they're somewhat more relatable to the audience.
So your content is mostly anecdotal, but there can be almost now I'm going to get this word wrong, macabre tone.
Yeah, macabre.
To your tone. Do you think you're instinctively to see the grim aspects of reality in your day-to-day life?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a really positive outlook on life in general, but then my comedy can be quite dark. I don't know. I think it's because the way I was raised, my family have very dark, sick sense of humour. So I'm going to blame my dad and my mum in particular on why my comedy is a little bit left of field. But I always find that during dark experiences, you might as well laugh because otherwise you'll cry. And I think that's kind of why sometimes my comedy is quite morbid and quite dark. And I think I kind of not like my audience squirming or kind of not knowing whether they should laugh or not, but I certainly take a lot of experience and enjoyment, I guess, watching my audience confront the material for 60 minutes.
Yeah, that's so interesting you say that, because I think that people are drawn to that sort of morbid humor because they want to try and put a funnier spin on things that are affecting their lives. So I think that's a really great point. So who are your comedic influences?
Oh, so many. There's so many amazing comedians out there that are doing some fantastic work. Hannah Gadsby, I think, has just kind of changed the face of comedy as we know it. I actually love a lot of the Australian comedians, Judith Lucy, Tommy Little. But I think as well, my comedy influence, I guess, kind of stems right back, I guess, to those kind of British sitcoms like Are You Being Served? And some others do have them. Because I used to watch those a lot with my grandmother, and we always used to laugh at that.
Oh, that's incredible. So for your most recent show, Domestic, you would film your own performances with an iPad on the side. So what's the reasoning behind that?
It's basically because each show is such a unique experience. It's a really great way to just record yourself and kind of see where the benchmark is from each show, particularly from the start of the season through to the end. So even though I really try and make the material brand new every night in the way that it feels as if it's never been said before, of course, it's mainly scripted. And of course, there's some improvising depending on how their audience are reacting. Most of the time, it's the same script. So in order to film, basically, just gives me that firsthand experience, because as you kind of said, like, well, we were talking about my first show, Would You Like Fries with That? Sometimes I'm standing up there going like, oh my God, this is the worst show I've ever done in my life. And I'll watch it back and I'll go, actually, that wasn't too bad. Whereas sometimes a show where I'm like, I'm killing this. This is going really well. I'll watch it back and go, I don't know what you were thinking, Jai. So the filming just helps me ground myself. But also, I guess I'm very critical of myself. I think most kind of creative / comedians are. And that way, I think I can just be really critical and really honest and open with myself about things that are working and things that aren't. Because if something's not working in a comedy show, kind of get 2 tries, and then after that, it needs to be cut. So that's kind of what that filming does.
Has it always been like that, or do you just sometimes do it without the filming and just get up there and not know how, like, you couldn't visualize it?
Yeah, sometimes, because obviously, like when you're doing those nights where there's multiple comedians, it's very hard to be like, I'm going to sit my iPad down and record myself, or unless, there's a friend in the audience that can record it for you. So some nights I'm just getting a feel on stage. I mean, that's the good thing about comedy in comparison to some other art forms. You're just getting that immediate reaction straight away. You're not having to wait, until something's dropped on Netflix or a movie or anything like that takes lots of time and then gets released, and you have to kind of read through social media on what people are experiencing. With comedy, it's there. They're either going to laugh or they're not going to laugh. So you kind of already can tell. Same with kind of reading reviews. I mean, reviews can be quite subjective, but at the same time, you just kind of have a feel of whether the audience are enjoying it or not.
Yeah. So this is a bit one away from the comedy. So in the show, you mentioned that you were planning to get married in February, but the government announced a 5-day lockdown, which means you postponed it. Can you talk us through the emotions you went through at that time when the wedding was meant to be planned out?
Yeah, well, we're supposed to get married in November 2020. And of course, we all know what happened there in the state of Victoria. So we thought, by February, everything will be fine. We were all ready to go. We were literally at the venue. We do our site visit of our venue. The press conference starts, we watch it, and we kind of our hopes and dreams of that day were completely crushed. But we thankfully managed to get married a week later. We just got eloped. And then a month after that, we managed to have our ceremony at the beautiful Melbourne Recital Centre on stage at the Elizabeth Murdoch Hall, which was an upgrade to where we were going. So it all worked out in the end.
Oh, like so many couples, but that's fantastic to hear that you were eventually able to have the wedding that you guys wanted. That's incredible. Now, speaking of weddings, you're a certified civil celebrant. How did you get interested in that, and why is that important to you?
Yeah, I was, again, similar to the comedy thing. I knew I had skills, public speaking, and I thought, how can I monetize that? So someone said to me, have you thought about being a celebrant? And I thought, oh, not really. And then I looked up the course, and I hadn't kind of done any courses in a while. And I'm one of those people that just like doing random courses and experiences because I think this all helps me with writing my material. So I did the course. And the reason why I love it so much is because I think most people, regardless of whether they want to get married or not, I guess, but if they do make the choice to get married, they're really making a commitment to the love of their life to basically be with them for the rest of their lives. And to be there on that one special day to kind of really experience that live in the moment, it's really, really cool, particularly when you've kind of met a couple and you're getting to know them kind of on the surface, but you get to see them in their element with their family and friends and loved ones around them. It's really, really special. And it's actually an honor, I guess, to be a part of their day. It's really unique, which is exciting.
So your show Domestic this year occasionally covers some risque topics, including your love life. Did your family see the show, and how was that ride home?
They did see the show. The family I was okay with. It was the work colleagues that I think was a bit weird because like the following day we were in a meeting and it was like, you know, a few of them hadn't attended and it was like, what did you think of Jai's show? And one of the colleagues said, it was interesting, which I think is a very valid response.
Are you planning on doing any more stand-up comedy in the future?
I am. I'm working on a new show. I say I'm working on a new show, but I haven't actually started writing anything. But again, coming up with the ideas on what it might be about. And I'm hoping to premiere as part of the 2022 Melbourne International Comedy Festival, providing everything goes ahead. So watch this space.
Keep the suspense there. So all our viewers, make sure you watch this space because Jai Cameron is planning something hopefully big for 2022. Well, it's been such a fantastic chat, Jai. Thank you so much for talking to us on Offbeat today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Much appreciated.